So thanks again, Krumi, and thanks, Natsuko. My name is David Ryersgood. I'm the Center Director at the IS Abroad Cape Town Center. And before I get into the presentation, I just want to say that all of us on staff, you will only see me in this presentation, but all of us on staff are really, really looking forward to this program. It will be our first time hosting a group of students from Japan, but we're really excited for this because it pushes us to explore new ways of delivering academic programs for students. So if I forget to say anything along those lines, I want to begin by saying we're really excited to meet all of you and to welcome you all to our center. So this is a view from inside our center. It's not a very large space, but it has a lot of different rooms and areas you'll get to know. So as I mentioned, I'm the Center Director here, and this is not necessarily in terms of importance how I've listed these names, but there's four other people. Jody Felton, who's our operations manager. He leads the team with student affairs and helps with any housing related issues. And again, everyone on this call, or everyone listed here, you will meet once you're on site. Ashley Brown is our program coordinator, handles a lot of field trips, will attend a lot of the site visits and cultural activities on the program, handles our logistics, so on and so forth. Yvonne Dumumbi is our academics manager, who you will meet when it comes to guest lectures and academic related activities. And then the newest member of our team, in fact, he has not even started yet, but he will have about 3.5 months under his belt by the time you all arrive in August, is Safiso Michali. So you will see him on field trips around at the center. We're a small team, but I think we do a really good job. But ultimately, our main focus as a center is to be student-centered. We like meeting new students, we like engaging with new students, and we love showing new people Cape Town, what Cape Town has to offer, the various aspects that make Cape Town a really interesting place. And hopefully in the process, we'll highlight some connections between Japan and South Africa, as well as the African continent and the Asian continent more broadly. So when you arrive, I imagine this information has been communicated in some forms, but I know given the distance you all will be traveling, and this information can easily be forgotten. And arrivals can be a little bit of a stressful time, arriving in an airport after flying all day, sometimes all night. So the Cape Town airport, thankfully, is not very big. It's actually quite small. So it's not going to be, certainly won't be like Tokyo's international airports or many other international airports around the world for big cities. So in that sense, hopefully won't be too stressful in terms of people and just movement at the airport, but there will be someone waiting for you directly outside of this photo here. You will be coming the direction of this person here, and there will be someone waiting for you with an IS Abroad or IS Abroad SAF Japan sign that will be waiting to collect the whole group. This person will arrange for everyone's luggage and suitcases to be loaded onto transport, and from there you will be taken directly to the hotel. Depending on traffic, it's about a 20-minute drive, and quite a nice drive into the city. So I wouldn't stress too much about the arrivals and being picked up. It's really just on all of you to get through the long flights coming up. So the housing that you will be in is a hotel in the neighborhood of Sea Point. This is one, obviously a map, but I have another one in the next slide to illustrate more clearly its proximity to the IS Center. But for now, I wanted to give you a couple of looks into what the hotel looks like and what the rooms will look like. It's in a safe area. It's in a really exciting area too, in terms of having the ocean. Each of you, I'm sure, will get to know the promenade, which is a sidewalk patio space that essentially lines this whole area, and is very popular with people from sun up to sundown, jogging, running, walking dogs, going on walks, hanging out in the grass. It's a really, really fun area. I used to live over in that side, and I sometimes wish I still did. Lots of great restaurants and fun things to do. So I think all of you will really enjoy where you're staying, and it's a bit of a special place. So To illustrate here, I've got two very poorly drawn circles. I apologize for that. Our center is here in what is, it's not technically in the suburb of Mowbray. We're actually here in Rondebosch. But the distance between the center here and the hotel here is about 7-8 kilometers, maybe 9. And we'll take, like I said, somewhere between 10 to 15 minutes to get to. But again, it's safe to walk around. Oh, I made a mistake. I realized it is 13 kilometers from the center. I forgot that I had that bullet point, but it's safe to walk around. And I keep emphasizing that because I know with South Africa, and I'll touch on this in more detail now, there are obviously concerns about safety, health and safety. And so I want to emphasize that you will feel, I think, fairly comfortable in Sea Point. And like I said, it's a bustling, kind of busy little touristy neighborhood, but also very much a South African neighborhood that reflects the diversity of Cape Town and all of the different types of people and cultures that exist in South Africa. Just a couple of more details to give you an idea. What you have here is an overhead view of the city of Cape Town. Now, I'm sure all of you are familiar with Table Mountain or Signal Hill or Devil's Peak. What you have here, if you can see my cursor right above the Camisa House, this is Table Mountain here. And then what you have here, this sort of arm, this would be Lion's Head, and this is Signal Hill. So that will make much more sense once you're in the city, but Cape Town is sort of built around the mountain. So it's a central feature to your experience, and the site of Table Mountain looming in the background will be a very familiar site by the end of the program. So just some city safety tips, and again, part of these would be relevant in every city, but we also want to be mindful of the fact that you're not in every city, you're coming to Cape Town. And so there are specific things that we want you to be aware of. Most of this comes down to just being streetwise. And I think being streetwise applies to every other bullet point below this. Paying attention to surroundings. And this is, I think, fairly simple. If you're walking around with headphones in or with music in, it's not that you're not paying attention to what's around you, but because your senses are engaged primarily in your ears, maybe your sight or sense of other things around you might not be as sharp. So it's things like that, just making sure you're fully present when you're walking around. Being in groups is always a good way to go. Knowing how to get home at night. I don't know what any of your appetites are for social life. It's a fun part of Cape Town. It is something that we encourage students, if they do go out to dinner, or go out someplace maybe after dinner, that if you leave as a group of 4 to go to someplace, you would leave as that group of 4 to return. So part of being in a group like this is looking out for one another, staying as a group, using Uber, using the reliable modes of transport, which we'll touch on again a bit now and more so in orientation, and just being mindful of the fact that you are a group. And when you're out and about, maybe the best resources for navigating cultural differences or understanding is talking with one another. ATM safety is not something you would necessarily need to be worried about, but there could be an opportunity where people are offering help, which isn't necessary. There are plenty of ATMs around. Most of them are going to be found inside of banks, so there would be some presence of security or activity. But the same rules apply about paying attention to your surroundings. If it's a single ATM on a dark street or on a corner, maybe it's not the best place to use it. But we advise the students that are currently here to use ATMs. We advise future students to use them. We use them. So it's a fairly straightforward process and one that one would be familiar with. But ATMs are safe and can be accessed quite easily. This question I've posed at the end, how to deal with people on the street, is the issue of homelessness is quite prominent in Cape Town, and inequality is quite extreme. South Africa, by most metrics, is the most unequal country in the world. So there will be quite immediately the awareness of poverty and the awareness of inequality, and that is quite apparent even from leaving the airport. So there might be instances where people approach you walking on the street to ask for some change or if you could buy them some groceries. We don't have a policy about whether you should do that or shouldn't. Our advice is kind of twofold. On the one hand, just because someone stops to talk to you does not necessarily mean you need to stop to talk to them. Now, in saying that, one doesn't need to be rude in order to not talk to somebody. There are ways to just keep walking. And also remember, when we think about homeless people or homelessness, these are still human beings. And it can be a situation where you get quite familiar with dismissing people asking for something that you start to forget that these are human beings. So it's just something important to keep in mind. It will be something you have to navigate while you're here. But it might also not be. It's not an experience that everyone is bound to happen, but it is a detail about Cape Town that we feel is important for people to know of ahead of time. And of course, we will touch on this again once everyone is at the center for orientation. So there are some, obviously, a number of field trips and site visits you're going to be doing, which are some of the peninsula tours, the construction bags. I won't touch on all of this yet because we'll get into it more when it comes to the orientation. But I want to also touch on field trip transport because that's another concern people have about how are we going to get around, how will we be taken. So transport is arranged for every item included in the program. There is not any transport any of you as students will need to think about or decide on inside the program. When it's after hours or free days, that will be up to you. We do encourage everyone to use Uber, but there will be a dedicated driver who remains with the group in addition to a staff member throughout the program across all field trips. So you will be getting around safely, you will be getting around timely. We're very big on people being on time. I don't suppose that will be a problem for this group, but it's going to be important, and especially with so many different activities moving around throughout Cape Town. We do then, as part of our health and safety standards, something IES Abroad really prides itself on is our attention to health and safety and our focus on the well-being of our students. This number isn't so important for you to write down now, but once you get on site, it is something that we will ask that you add to your phone. It is our 24-hour IES Abroad emergency phone. I have it this week. I was going to pull it up to show you. What it is a phone that rotates between staff members each week. So someone always has it, whether it's 3 a.m. or 3 p.m., but it is used for emergencies. If you're, let's say, for example, you go out as a group and maybe you stay out a bit later and you're struggling to find an Uber home, that might be a great time to phone the emergency phone to make us aware of this, and we can provide assistance or help sort you out as needed. Maybe another situation is you've eaten some food, you've been here a couple of days, and you feel like you're getting a food poisoning and it's the middle of the night. That would be something too that would be great to use the emergency phone for, but it doesn't necessarily have to be limited to that. It is a resource where if you get into a situation or you feel like you're sort of uncomfortable or something isn't what you expected, the emergency phone is not necessarily for us to talk you through it, but to be an immediate point of contact to provide you with resources or next steps for resolving a situation or getting you the assistance that you need. It's always staffed, and again, we'll provide you with this in orientation as well as with the program guidebook that you'll receive in a couple of months. So just some fun facts about Cape Town. This here is sort of, you get a better view of Table Mountain, Signal Hill, and Lion's Head. If you can see my cursor, I know it kind of fades away and gets a little darker. Sea Point and the hotel is going to be right around here. So you're going to be right in the heart of the city, right on the ocean. From the hotel's entrance, I think you could walk to the ocean in 3 minutes. If you're a fast walker, I would say 1 minute. So you're right there in a great spot. Cape Town used to be, before they established the Suez Canal between Eastern Europe and the Middle East, Cape Town was the primary stopover point between Europe and Asia, particularly with India. So it has a very long history, established in 1652. And it is very much a maritime port city. There are people from all over the world, whether it's business, education, finance, what have you. It's a very, very diverse city. It's famous for the Table Mountain, as I said here, which is one of the 7 new wonders of the world. It is something that while you're here, there's plenty of trails and whatnot to hike these, and we have a lot more information about how to hike safely. But it is an interesting and central part of anyone's experience in Cape Town because, like I said, it functions sort of as the main central part of the city. So wherever you are in Cape Town, whether you're in the hotel, whether you're at the Cape of Good Hope, you will always be able to see Table Mountain in some way that kind of helps you to orient yourself. The city is located on the Atlantic Ocean, almost where the 2 oceans meet, the Atlantic Ocean and the Indian Ocean. It's a Mediterranean climate. We will still be in winter when you guys arrive in August, but it is not a winter like you would be used to in Japan or like where I was used to growing up in Minnesota in the United States. Winter here is very mild for people who experience snow regularly or annually. But it does get colder than people think. Currently, I want to check. Currently, it's 19 degrees here. Just a couple of hours ago, when I woke up, it was about 13 degrees. That will continue to get colder as we get closer to August. But I want to emphasize that point because I think something that we commonly see with students is not preparing with the clothes that they bring. They maybe think it'll be warmer than we're telling them, so I just want to make sure everyone is aware of that and to have clothes that will enable you to be comfortable in 4 seasons in one day. There are a lot of microclimates in Cape Town because of the mountains and the orientation of the ocean and the peninsula. So, for example, you might wake up, go walk out of the hotel into the transport. It's a beautiful sunny day in Sea Point. By the time you go around the mountains to the center, it could be cloudy and looking like it's going to rain. After that, when you go to a particular site visit, it could be totally different weather again. So Cape Town is one of those places. It's important to have layers that you can either shed or that you can add. So I think that's quite important. As I mentioned, it's a very cosmopolitan city with mixed demographics, racially, in terms of religions, cultural backgrounds, cultural practices, language. It's hard to describe in a way what Cape Town is, because there are so many different ways in which one could answer that question. If one is a Black South African, if one is a colored South African, if one speaks Xhosa as a first language, there's many different ways in which one's experience is determined by these things. Now, while you're here, you will get exposure to a lot of this. As an illustration, South Africa has 12 official languages, one of which is English, one of which is sign language. Then there are 10 others, Xhosa, Zulu, Sesotho, so on and so forth, that people speak. A lot of that is regionality. If you're in a particular province or a particular part of South Africa, you may hear less English and you might hear more isiZulu. Nonetheless, English is very commonly spoken in Cape Town. I can't imagine any of you would meet someone or engage with someone who isn't able to speak English. So, and there isn't also, I think this is important because I've noticed this on some of my travels in Europe and whatnot. There is not a negative association with speaking English or asking people to speak English or only being able to speak English, in this case, to another person. South Africans are really, really friendly. And because there are so many different languages, really the goal is not necessarily saying something perfectly in English or in Xhosa or something. The goal is to be understood. And so South Africans often will, if I'm one of maybe the only people in the country who only speaks one language, but South Africans often will speak multiple languages to each other in the same conversation. So I'm just trying to illustrate that from a language point of view, from a communication point of view, I don't imagine anyone will be treated negatively because of, I would be highly surprised if someone was treated negatively because of language or not served or engaged with. So everyone should be able to get around quite easily and communicate with people. And like I said, South African society prime seems to emphasize being understood. And whether that is a combination of languages or in one's head, it might not feel as fluent as someone else, it doesn't really matter. People are more likely to point out that someone is making fun of someone's language rather than correct that person, if that makes sense. It's really quite, people are really quite serious about that. So they want to make sure everyone's understood. Now, some of these other photos, again, Cape Town, as I mentioned, is very diverse in terms of people and culture, but it's also very diverse in terms of environment. Within the city, you have beaches, you have a kind of, it's nothing like Tokyo, but you have a kind of urban center. You've got mountains, you've got vineyards, you've got desert. All of this, in theory, one could experience within the same day. I often explain to our semester students, you could wake up, attend your classes at the University of Cape Town, have lunch, go surfing, and then end at a vineyard for dinner, if you wanted. That's all possible within 50 kilometers round trip. So there is something for everyone. If you're really into arts and culture, there's a lot in Cape Town. If you have no interest in hiking, totally fine. There's plenty to do, and I think something that will speak to everyone. So just some closing remarks is a little bit of a bigger picture. Like I said, and some of what I would have added here, I alluded to just now. But Cape Town ultimately is a very welcoming, friendly, exciting, and I would say growing city. It's certainly growing within South Africa. It's absolutely growing within the African continent, and a lot of important changes and developments are now being spearheaded by Cape Town. So part of what you will experience is that growth, is that are those dynamics, and are those multifaceted components to what it means to be a major city in the global South or in a non-Western environment. But also what we will point out in orientation and throughout the program is that, like any place, the biggest cities or where the most people live are not necessarily reflective of the realities of the whole country. So there are aspects to South Africa which aren't necessarily the same in Cape Town that they are elsewhere. And that is a big part of, I think, understanding what South Africa and Cape Town is and isn't. It's a very welcoming, friendly, exciting, kind of bustling space. But it isn't that everywhere. South Africa is primarily a very rural country, and you see that when you start venturing out of Cape Town a bit. But nevertheless, I think it's a really exciting time to be visiting Cape Town. I don't have to get into any geopolitical stuff, but Cape Town is in the front and center of a lot of important conversations and aspects around the world. And I have no doubt in guest lectures and site visits, some of the maybe less known connections between Africa or South Africa and Asia or South Africa and Japan might be quite interesting to learn and surprising to learn about. And we're really, really excited to welcome everybody. And over the next couple of months, as you're wondering how this will go or what will it be like, I hope you remain excited. But even if you arrive and you're a little confused and you're a little anxious, we are happy to meet you where you are and to welcome you as best we can. So I thank you all very, very much for your time. And I believe, Kumi, I'm happy to answer any questions anyone might have. Yeah, so thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much for the informative presentation, David. Actually, that makes me want to join the program. Thank you so much. So I'd like to have some time for Q&A, maybe just for 5 minutes. そう、皆さん、今、ケープタウンセンターのデイビッドさんから説明がありましたけれども、今から5分くらい、質問を受け付けたいと思います。で、チャットでも結構ですし、別に日本語でも英語でも全く何でも大丈夫ですので、チャットか、あとはマイクオンにして、ぜひ、質問がある方は教えてください。ちょっとお待ちしますので、待ってる間にですね、ちょっと私の方からも何点か質問したいなと思います。So, David, I got a couple of questions. So, the first question is, so there's a student who wants to visit a safari park during the program. Do you know, is there any safari park nearby Cape Town? And then
there is. I'm gonna type it in the chat.
Thank you so much.
Just want to make sure I'm typing the full name properly. Achilles game on this.
Is that Aquila?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. So this is something that's quite accessible. It's only about 2 hours north of where the center is, but it is something free day or the free weekend. There is enough time if someone wanted to do a kind of half-day trip to do a safari and back by the afternoon. That's absolutely possible. And the way Aquila is set up in such a way, a lot of people who visit Aquila are staying in Cape Town, so they have transport available to collect you where you are in the city and the reserve and back. So there are,
So, like from the safety perspective, do you think it's like possible to visit by their own?
Yeah, I think I would encourage people to go in groups just because, you know, if you're traveling alone, it's not unsafe, but it might just not be the most comfortable. But absolutely it's safe. I actually went there with a friend from the US in December and had a fantastic time. And we left early in the morning and we were back home by 2 p.m. And it was truly, I mean, he loved it. I've done a few of these, but I really loved it too. It was really great fun. So elephants, lions, hippos, giraffe.
Wow. Okay.
Some things called springbok and eland, which are these very large. Springbok are small, but eland is a very large, deer, very large deer.
That's great to know. Let me translate in Japanese as well. 皆さん、今私がお聞きしたのが、2週間のプログラムの期間中にサファリパークに行けますかっていう質問です。で、今デビットさんがチャットに入れてくださいましたけれども、このアクイラゲームリザーブっていうところが、車で2時間ぐらいでケープタウンから行けるとこらしいので、一応こうピックアップとかもね、その自分の居場所、ホテルからピックアップしてくれて、現地に連れてくれる、こう送迎サービスとかもできるみたいなので、ぜひ、1日でね、日帰りで行けるようなので、ぜひチャレンジしてみてくださいということです。Okay, so move on to next question. So, is there any grocery store or supermarket around the hotel?
Yes, there are several. This information will be in our, so we have a guidebook that is like a digital handbook. What that will include is local information about groceries, where to get a haircut if you need one, where are the pharmacies, where are local doctors' offices, and other activities. It's quite extensive, and we even have there's lists of restaurants, there's lists of vegetarian restaurants, there's lists of vegan restaurants. So it's something though that we are always updating. So the information is not something that we created 5 years ago and have left. If students who are currently here say that restaurant is no longer there or that grocery store has moved, then we update. So it's a fairly, I would say, pretty up to date as of this month. And will potentially, if it needs to, change before then. But yes, students will have access to this. And it functions like an offline map. So once you download it onto your phone, you will have access to it, whether there's Wi-Fi or whatnot. But it has the schedule, staff profiles, health and safety, and information then about day-to-day stuff, groceries, ATMs, money, so on and so forth.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, explain in Japanese. 今お聞きしたのが、ホテルの近くにスーパーマーケットとか、その食品買えるような場所ありますかってお聞きしたんですけども、ありますということで、実際行ったら、例えばここにこういうショッピングセンターがあって、ここにレストランがあって、ここに ATM があってとか、こう主要にこう必要な場所のマップをもらえるらしいので、ぜひそれをね、活用いただければ全然問題ないですよということでした。Okay. And I got another 2 questions. So, is there any language support students can get like Japanese staff or staff who speak Japanese?
Yes, so there will be a translator throughout the duration of the program. I haven't included that in yet just because we haven't finalized it yet, but there will be Japanese language support available for the students and the program.
That's great. Thank you so much. そう、今私がお聞きしたのが、日本語のサポートが現地でありますかってお伝えし、聞いてみたんですけど、ありますと。日本語が喋れるスタッフが、サポートに当たりますので、そこは大丈夫ですよということです。はい。Oh, actually, another two questions. So one of them, from Hannah. So I'm not really good at speaking in English. And then how much level, English level do I need to like reach? Of course,
It's a
there
good,
is a language requirement, right? But
yeah, yeah.
just kind of worry about speaking
Yeah,
skill.
no, it's a good question, and I'm saying this as someone who only speaks English, so I
Mm,
don't if I don't mean to come across as if it's very easy, but
mm,
I think I I don't think there will be many challenges, and the reason I'm saying that is because English is the fourth most spoken language in South Africa. So for many
mm,
people, it's also their third or fourth, or certainly second,
mm,
their second language. So there is very few people would be maybe I'm not using myself as a standard, but there is
mm,
an understanding that English is not as precise as it might be when I'm speaking. People know that,
mm,
understand it. And again, I think if someone, for example, if a student is struggling to pronounce a word or to translate a certain thing into English, I think most people really do have the patience to sort of help you figure that out and
mm,
are happy to do so. And it really just comes down to one's manners. You know, if they're being rude about it, maybe not. But if someone is sort of saying, "Look, I'm trying to describe, you know, this thing," people are
mm,
usually really happy to help. So it's
mm,
tough because certainly still that if a student is not feeling like they're comfortable speaking, my answer doesn't really help them. But what I guess I'm
mm,
trying to say is that one can, I think one can be reassured that one wouldn't be excluded by their
mm,
language ability.
mm, mm, mm,
Certainly on the program, but out in the city and around. And if one's in a
mm,
group, I mean, for similar programs where there has been questions about language, what we've found is that it's staying in not one large group necessarily, but staying in groups can really help because there are opportunities then to ask amongst each
mm,
other
mm.
about this
Right.
thing or what that was or so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you so much for the answer. アンナさん、ありがとうございます。今、お聞きしたのが、英語が苦手だけども、なかなかちょっと会話が苦手ですと。で、どの程度話せれば参加できますかっていう質問だったんですけど、デイビッドさんから、そこは本当に心配しないでくださいと。まず先ほどの質問にあったように、まず日本語のサポートも現地で一応あります。で、もう一つとしては、アメリカとかね、あとイギリスとか、その英語が第一の国ではなくて、ここ本当に英語も公用語になってますけれども、それ以外たくさんの言語が話せれてる国になります、場所になりますので、なんかこう、英語が苦手であっても、頑張ってこうコミュニケーションしようとすれば、全然理解しようとしてくれますし、とてもこう、フレンドリーな方がすごく多い国なので、そこは本当に心配しないでくださいということでした。あとは、このプログラム、日本人の、グループ、日本人の学生さんのグループで行うプログラムになりますので、なんか一人だけ置いてかれたりとかね、そういうことは全然ないですし、一緒にこうグループ間で日本人同士で質問することもできるし、全然安心してくださいというところです。ただ、最低の英語要件は後ほど説明しますけど、ありますので、そこがクリアいただければ全然問題ないです。花さん、大丈夫そうですかね？ありがとうございます。The last question we got. Actually, this is my question though. So I understand the center will use a charter service, right, for all the program activities during the program. And is it including the commute between the hotel and the center for class? Is it
Yes,
correct? Okay,
yes.
great. Thank you
Yep.
so much.
So everything, if a student, if
Mm,
there's a program element,
mhm,
transport arranged for it.
mhm,
But then anything after hours or if students have free time,
mhm,
would be at their own. But if it's as simple as if, for example, if there's just a guest lecture or something at the center for 2 hours,
mhm.
transport would be waiting and get them there and back.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. That's good to know. そう、皆さん、今私がお聞きしたのが、ホテルからセンターの研修生ちょっと離れてたかと思います。で、そのホテルとそのセンター間の送迎はありますかっていう質問を私してみました。 で、ありますということだったので、安全に、通学はできるかと思いますので、ぜひご安心ください。もうすべてのアクティビティに含まれているその移動に関しては、すべて、チャーターの車がつきます。で、自由時間で自分だけで行動する時間だけは、例えば、ウーバーとか使っていただいたりとか、自分たちでの行動になりますけれども、基本的にプログラム内の移動はすべてチャーターの車で、移動しますということです。はい。皆さんありがとうございます。最後、他ご質問とか大丈夫そうでしょうか？大丈夫そうですかね？ありがとうございます。I think we don't have any more questions, David.
Okay.
So thank you so much for your presentation today.